Perfect. Okay. So today we are going to start with just a little bit about, I guess, why is sleep so important? And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Sound Asleep Club and the partnership that we're currently running with Carers UK. And then we're going to talk about some top tips for creating healthy bedtime rituals and routines. And then we're going to end with a guided meditation and a journaling activity. So just make sure that you have a pen and paper nearby, as we'll need that in a bit, and then we can end with some questions as well. But as we go, I'm sure that if people want to put stuff in the chat, we can also kind of collate that at the end, and Ellie can help kind of facilitate that. Okay, so who am I? So we've had a little bit of an intro from Ellie, and so I have a background in design and particularly within healthcare, and working a lot within the NHS to design healthcare services. And over the years, I've worked with lots of communities and NHS trusts to design the stuff that goes inside the hospital. But for me, I've always been really passionate about how we as individuals and as communities look after ourselves before we end up in the hospital, and so actually like the holistic side of care, and I think it's something that isn't always necessarily kind of focused on when we go to the GP. And actually I think there's lots of things that we can do that are kind of preventative health measures to kind of explore and look after our well-being and ourselves. And so that's why I started to kind of explore and train within the holistic health space, and moved into sound therapy. And you can see behind me there's a big gong, and I chose sound as it's actually an incredible tool to help us relax. And so the way I like to describe it, how the gong works and how sound meditation works, is if you think about when you might be stressed or anxious, quite often we tense up, and in our bodies the kind of like the tension kind of comes together. And if our bodies are made up of like 70% water, what we see is actually that this is the particles and the energy in our bodies all kind of tense. And actually the vibrations from sound actually can move through the body and break up those energy blockages. And so everything within the world is actually made up of forms of vibration, which you could go and do lots of kind of look in lots of science and quantum physics around the vibrational kind of elements of the earth. But actually from a sound perspective, the vibrations is simply just helping us to break up energy blockages and help us relax. And also I think the good thing about the gong particularly is it's quite an unusual sound, and it can take us into this kind of dreamlike state where we're kind of neither awake or asleep, and it really kind of allows us to kind of drift into our consciousness area where our intuition and our inner kind of guidance can kind of pop up. So what I mean by that is sometimes maybe if you've got a decision to make, because quite often in life, you know, there might be lots of things going on and you need to quieten your mind to kind of help you make decisions or just help you relax. The sounds of the gong, as well as the vibrations of the gong, can really just slow us down in order to be able to kind of listen and access to that kind of intuition and inner knowing. So let me move on. So why is sleep important, and how does the gong connect to sleep? As we know, that we spend, I think it's like a third of our lives sleeping, which is incredible really. And I think that not a lot of people actually put enough value on sleep, and we don't think about sleep, it's just something we naturally do. Sometimes we might have a good night's sleep, sometimes we might have a bad night's sleep. But what we're really interested in is actually how do we create the conditions that kind of bridge daytime to nighttime. And it's kind of a special time actually, if you think about it. At the end of the day, we're kind of transitioning, we're being able to go, okay, if something's happened today, we're going to leave it today, we're going to have a good night's sleep, or a rest and wake up tomorrow and start the day again. And so it's a really interesting time to actually be able to slow down and just kind of be able to give yourself that transition mode from one day to the other. And it's like the sunshine to the moon, and the transitions from the light to the dark to the light again. And it's just this kind of circular motion where actually I like to say quite a lot in the practices that everything in life is constantly moving in circles, like seasons. Sometimes we might be in spring in our life, and other times it might feel like winter, but everything always evolves. And that's the kind of pattern of the day. And so what we want to do is actually help people transition from the day into night. And as we can see also on this diagram here, is actually that sleep is actually one of the biggest single contributors to living better. And we all know that actually if we wake up and we've had a good night's sleep, it's kind of like rocket fuel. We can feel amazing. And if we've had a bad night's sleep, it can impact our emotions, it can impact our decisions. And so whatever we can do to just really kind of, even if it's a short sleep but good quality sleep, let's figure out how we kind of can enable that. So the Sound Asleep Club was basically an inspiration really from the last year. I mean, this time last year we were all in lockdown, and I've always been passionate about kind of doing stuff with communities to help people's mental health and well-being, and not being able to get out to help people was really frustrating. And so in April last year I decided to trial with the gong and me in the bedroom, kind of offering sleep sound spas to help people relax and turn off from the kind of stresses of lockdown. And from there, basically the Sound Asleep Club was born, with the whole idea of actually how do you help people relax and unwind their minds before bed. So last November we launched, and we're now a new social enterprise that runs basically live online bedtime classes to help people relax and sleep. And I'm a big champion that actually when we come to sleep or well-being, that actually it's not one size fits all. We kind of need to kind of experiment and try different things. So key to kind of what we're offering at the Sleep Club is different practices. Some might work for you, some might not work for you, but it's about trialing them. So some of the things that we have on at the moment, we have yoga for sleep. So that's all about kind of helping the body stretch and relax and release the day, in order to kind of transition into rest, which is great if you have kind of, quite a lot of us, if we're sitting, we end up with like back pain or different types of body pain. It just helps to kind of stretch that out before heading off to bed. And then we've got the sleepy sound spas, which I've mentioned. And then we've also got a classical pianist, Holly, who is leading music and mindfulness classes, to just use music in a different way to really help us slow down alongside mindfulness. And then we have Justine, who leads Yoga Nidra, and singing bowls. So Yoga Nidra isn't like stretchy yoga. Yoga Nidra is much more about like kind of a meditation and an approach to slowing down through connecting with like you tensing your body and then relaxing your body. So it's, if you wanted to try something that wasn't bendy yoga, I'd recommend Yoga Nidra. And then the final session that we have on at the moment is around breath work, and also journaling. And it's amazing the power of the breath to really help us kind of slow down, and also help us get to sleep. It's kind of something that we do every day, every minute of the day, every second of the day we're breathing, but quite often we don't even think about breathing. But actually, if take one slow deep breath, that actually is a form of kind of deep relaxation and meditation. And if you think about when you're in like a stressful situation, or if you've been busy, and actually if you just take one breath, it can just really change the outlook of everything, just slowing you down and helping kind of make you feel more present. And I think that's kind of part of the art of all of this, is actually turning this off and all the inner chatter that we have in our heads, and helping us just let go of that so we can transition into relaxation and into the moment, so then we can drift off to sleep. So in terms of what I wanted to mention about the partnership that we're doing with the Carers UK, we're currently working with the team at Carers UK over the next 3 months to offer carers the opportunity to join the club for 3 months. And try out the different classes, give some feedback, let us know what you think. And we currently have 20 spaces still available. So if you would like to give it a go, there's an email address, membership@carersuk.org. And you can sign up. The spaces are limited, so it is kind of first come, first serve, and Ellie will be kind of managing that. So if you've got any questions, do reach out to her. But it's just a good opportunity to trial different things out and to see what can help you in your situation. And actually, the one thing I did forget to say was that all of the classes are also available on demand, so they are recorded, so you can also watch them and do them at the time that suits you as well. So we're going to move on to the 12 top tips for creating a healthy bedtime ritual and routines. I started putting these tips together and I realised I had lots. It's not, but this is my top 12 for now. Okay, and it would be good afterwards actually to hear some of your top tips for what you've kind of worked around as a carer, and share those with each other afterwards as well. Okay, so the first top tip would definitely be around setting a regular bedtime. Sounds quite silly, but look, obviously I've got an 8-year-old, and we always say, right, you've got to be in bed by this time, because we know if he isn't in bed by this time, he's really grotty the next day. And actually, as adults, we sometimes forget to do that for ourselves. And so it's really important to kind of go, well, what have I got on tomorrow, and calculate back the amount of hours you need in order to feel good. Because quite often I think that we get distracted, we're watching TV or we're doing something and we just don't go to bed at that time, or we're playing on our phone. And so it's kind of it's like booking that time in with yourself to get into bed by that time, or just start like turning off at that time. And even if you're not asleep, but you're in like a lowly lit room and you're kind of calming down, listening to music, and not rushing about. Then the next tip, and I love this tip, we all love it, I'm sure you will understand, it's like fresh bedding. There's actually research by the National Sleep Foundation found that 73% of us sleep better in fresh bed sheets. And I am a big fan of this, and I know that I always seem to sleep better when we change the bed. And so I think it's kind of like, if you feel like you've got into that kind of, maybe there's been a few days where you feel like you've not been sleeping, give your bed sheets a good wash, change them, and even when you just get into them in the evening, it just feels different. And I think that it's just a great simple tip to just try and play with to see whether it helps you. Then we've got number 10. So there's lots that we could kind of go into on this one. It's around kind of creating a calming bedroom environment. And I think, that might be tricky, but it's like, as much as possible, try and clear out the stuff that's not needed in the bedroom. So it is clean and as tidy as possible, and as neutral colours as possible. And also just the lighting makes such a big difference. If you've got a massive bright light that you've got on as you're trying to kind of relax, you know, it kind of inhibits that kind of transition into relaxation. So having like little side lights, just little things that you might go, oh, that's not much, but actually all these little things add up in order to kind of enable us to kind of feel like we're transitioning from day into night. And then another big one is also making sure that it's the right temperature in your room. We've probably all been there where we've either been in bed and been cold and not being able to get to sleep, or just waking up in the middle of the night and being hot. And so it's kind of trying to find the right room temperature that works with you. For me personally, I prefer the room much cooler, and I feel that's easier to sleep. But for other people, they prefer the room slightly warmer. But it's just being aware and making sure each night that it's the perfect temperature as you're going to sleep. This one feels like a slightly obvious one, but actually is something that lots of people I know have coffee in the evening and then head off to bed and say that they haven't had a good night's sleep. And it's, you know, I think we are all aware that coffee is a stimulant. And I think what's really interesting is that how long it stays in our body for. And so you might be having a coffee after dinner, say at 6 o'clock, but actually that's still in our body, like for 4 to 6 hours. So it's like actually kind of like planning when to drink coffee or tea, caffeinated tea, and when to transition. And to it kind of, you know, there's lots of really good sleepy teas or natural teas, or just even boiling water with lemon or something. That's kind of a good transition after in the afternoon to kind of stop drinking caffeine, because I just think that it's a simple thing, but and you can also get some really great decaf teas now and decaf coffees. I'm a big fan of the decaf PG tips, and the one thing I would say is if you were going to stop drinking caffeine and move on to decaf, is that it does take a few days and you do tend to get headaches. So I'd do it very carefully and very slowly, as it can be quite intense when you realize that if you stop your caffeine intake, how much your body kind of relies on it. The next one, one of my favorites, if you've got time, having a soak in the bath is a really great way to transition into sleep, and having like those candles. But you know, not all of us have a bath at home, but showers actually also achieves pretty much the same impact as having a bath, because it's about changing your body's core temperature before bedtime. And also, just back on the bath, I think it's just even the ritual of going, I'm going to have a bath and I'm going to run that bath and I'm going to put some bubble bath in for me and just giving yourself that time and that space is a big part of the experience of having a bath, if that makes sense. And giving yourself that just that space. Okay, number 7 is tickling your senses. So it's amazing actually how our different senses can kind of play with how we feel, and actually using lavenders and scents that are naturally calming and essential oils, whether it's a few drops on your pillow or a room spray or a diffuser, can actually just change the feeling of a room. And I mean, lavender is just so amazing for just taking a breath in, experiencing the scent and just slowing down. So I would really recommend kind of playing with different scents, and there's loads of different products and things out there that you can kind of get with lavender in now. I've even got perfume that I wear with lavender in, so it's really nice. Okay, now this one I think is really interesting, and something that probably happens a lot is around waking up in the night. And what do I do if I wake up in the night? And actually my husband last night said he looked at this presentation and he decided to get up out of bed. So basically, you know, when you wake up in the middle of the night, or also if you're trying to get to sleep, if you're looking at your clock, it can bring on this kind of feeling of like anxiety, because I'm not going to sleep and I can see the time going by. And so I would really recommend not looking at the clock. We've all had those nights where it feels like we've been awake all night because we keep looking at the clock to check what time it is. So it's, don't look at the clock, but actually if you've been awake for more than 20 minutes, just get out of bed and move for a little bit and then get back into bed, because there's nothing worse than after like 20 minutes just kind of like laying there and tossing and turning and getting frustrated. So get up, have a little walk around, and then get back into bed and try again. And I think, you know, this whole thing of going back to sleep, it's like then gently maybe trying some of the techniques around meditation and breath work, which I'll come on to in a moment, to just potentially quieten the mind, because that's quite often what happens when we wake up, is we think about what we've got to do tomorrow, or maybe we focus on sounds in the room, or the little light flashing in the corner, so it's kind of like trying to kind of blank all of those out and kind of get into your zone again to get back into sleep. So number 5 is around connecting with your breath and your breathing. There's actually a breathing exercise called the 4-7-8 breath, which is apparently can help you get to sleep in 1 minute. Well, that would be amazing. I can't guarantee that, but it really helps your nervous system and your body slow down. And so this is something that we would recommend trying, because actually when we focus on our breath, we're less focused on our mind and we're focusing on our breathing. So we inhale for 4, and we can count to 4 in our head, and then we hold our breath for 7, and we count to 7, and then we exhale for 8. And so in your head you're thinking about 4, and then 7 hold, and then 8 release. And so the focus becomes on the numbers and the breathing, and that really just helps us slow down and reduce anxiety, and help you kind of turn off and get to sleep. So I'd really recommend that one, and that's kind of why we decided to have a breathwork teacher, but also try and kind of integrate that into a lot of our classes as well. And when we do our meditation in a minute, we'll do a little bit of breathing to kind of just have a little bit of a play with how that feels. Escaping into a book. Reading is kind of also another great way to transition from day into night, where we kind of just escape into another world. And I think, what was it here, the Sleep Council says that 39% of people who are in the habit of reading before they go to bed sleep very well. And it's just kind of just another way of getting out of the head, and slipping into a different space. And it's also just a really relaxing activity. And I mean, depending on what kind of books, if you're a Kindle reader or if you're a book reader, all I'd recommend is that you don't have a massive light on when you're doing it. So that's why Kindles are quite good, because they've got the backlight, or you have a little spotlight on your book. I've got a friend who, when her partner reads, he just has a massive light on, and she then struggles to get to sleep because he's reading his book. So it's being sensitive to the other person in the room with you too. Number 3 is the yoga for sleep. So there's been lots of studies around how actually we can use yoga to improve our sleep by basically just these gentle, slow movements to slow down the mind and also stretch the body, as I mentioned before, and do some gentle meditations and breath work. And it's also, if you look at like cats or dogs, if you think about, quite particularly in the morning, actually, I look at my dog and he just like the most amazing downward dog stretch and like big stretches. And then at night time, he'll quite often stretch before he goes to sleep as well. And if we stretched out our body or our backs particularly, we're more likely to be able to have a better night's sleep, because body tension. So the big part is actually quite often you can do a lot of these moves in bed, so like it's like a bed yoga, to kind of release any tension or stresses in the body, in order to be able to kind of sleep without ongoing kind of niggles and pains. So that's one I would definitely recommend. And then meditation. So meditation's an interesting one. There's so many different types of meditation. I think most people have heard of mindfulness. But like I was talking about earlier, we've got sound meditation. So actually what you're doing is you're listening to the sounds, and the sounds are also working at another level. So even if you're asleep, the sound and the vibrations are still kind of working to relax your body. Then you also have visual meditation, like so guided meditation, which we'll try out in a minute, where you're basically guided on a journey, on a visual journey, where you just have to trust what comes into your mind and follow that kind of story. And that's a great way to kind of start with meditation, really, because I think a lot of us think that meditation is just sat with our legs crossed with a clear mind and nothing's coming in it like a monk. And it's really difficult there. I think you have to be a really advanced meditator, and probably live in the middle of nowhere, in order to kind of reach that state of inner kind of silence, because our lives are busy and there's lots going on. And so I think that in terms of meditation, like for me, I always say to people, meditation can just be free, slow, deep breaths. And actually that has a really good starting point. Anyone can stop and take 3 slow, deep breaths. And then you can kind of work and go, well, actually, I'm going to spend 3 minutes meditating. I'm going to spend 5 minutes meditating. And then one of the things that you can use for meditation is even when you're going for a walk, say, for example, and you're in nature and you just can stop and sit down by a tree and just breathe, and that's a form of meditation too. And so I think what I don't like is when I think people get put off by meditation because they feel like it's something that they can't do or can be tricky. I think it's about actually how do we make this accessible, and play with different ways of kind of meditating. And then my last tip is ultimately, we all experience phases where we can't sleep. Maybe there's something big going on, or maybe, like you say, you're being woken up in the middle of the night by the person that you're caring for. But if it's something that then starts to inhibit how you feel and your daily life and your daily well-being and mood, then it's really worth going to speak to a doctor. I was speaking to my father-in-law, who he just had a niggle with his breathing, like something very small, but for him it became a really big issue because he couldn't stop thinking about it. And because he couldn't stop thinking about it, he then couldn't sleep. And then he was waking up the next day, and he just couldn't focus on anything. And he was kind of disconnected from what was going on in the world. So there was a conversation happening because he was so tired. He just didn't feel like he was part of that. And so after a conversation, we got to the point where actually he realized that this was impacting his life and that he needed to go to speak to the doctor. But it took quite a long conversation with him to get to the point to realize that actually that's the thing that he thought was quite small in terms of not sleeping was actually quite big, because it was impacting who he was as a person. And so I just totally recommend going to speak to your doctor about it and writing a list of kind of those symptoms, that like traits of what's happening, so when you go into that consultation you have it all listed down, because it's so easy for it to be dismissed, but you need to kind of make sure that the key points are communicated. So that's the list that I've got. We can talk about that, and maybe you've probably got lots of questions which we can kind of come on to. But what I'd like to do now is a little guided meditation. So if everyone could just grab their notepads and pens, because we're going to move from the meditation into the journaling. And if you could just be somewhere comfortable where you feel like you can either lay down or you can just sit back with your eyes open or closed, that would be great. And we're just going to listen to some relaxing music, and I'm going to lead you on a guided meditation. Can everyone hear that? Yeah. I'm going to lead you on a guided meditation, and then we are going to transition into just doing some journaling. And journaling is a really simple way also, which is another great tool to do at the end of the day, where you just kind of capture how you're feeling and maybe do some gratitudes for the day. Put the screen back on. There we go. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with some breath work, and then we're going to connect with our bodies, and then we're going to experience just some sounds. And the aim of this time is to just really slow down and just be in this moment. So if you're comfortable, you can turn your cameras off if you want, so no one can see you with your eyes closed, or you can leave them on, whichever feels comfortable for you. And you can either lie down or lay back, just sit back and either close your eyes or just find a point of focus, focusing on one particular place. And then we're going to start with just noticing how our breathing is right now. Maybe it's shallow or maybe it's deep. Just notice and don't judge. And then I'm going to guide us to do some breath work where we will be breathing in for 4, we'll be holding for 4, and then we'll be breathing out. So we'll breathe in through our nose, we'll hold, and then we'll breathe out through our mouths. And I'll count us in. So to the count of 4, we're going to breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And just hold your breath for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then slowly release through your mouth for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now breathe in again through your nose to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And slowly release for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now in your own time, count in the breath of 4 through your nose, holding for 4, and then releasing through your mouth for 4. Slowly again, in through your nose to the count of 4. Hold for 4. And let it all go for 4. And now just let your breathing return to its normal pattern. Noticing how it feels. Just feeling your breath nice and slow, in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just realizing that at any time you can connect to your breathing to help center yourself and find your inner calm. And now we're just going to notice how our body feels today. Starting with our face, noticing any tension, and then just letting our face totally relax, letting it drop. Feeling our face totally relaxed. Feeling where our body connects to the seat or the ground or wherever we are today. Just feeling your body and the connection beneath you and the weight of you being held. Moving into our shoulders, giving them a little wriggle if they're tight. Just letting them go and letting them relax. Bringing your awareness down into the core of your body, noticing how it feels. Noticing your arms, noticing your hands, maybe give them a wriggle so there's no tension in the hands. Now moving our awareness to the tops of our legs, our knees, our lower legs, and our feet. Just slowly breathing in through your nose, and then when you exhale, just feeling your breath moving through your body, and feeling a lightness and ease, moving slowly through. Feeling your mind slowing down. And then we're just going to bring our awareness to a part of our body that's maybe calling for our attention. So just go with the first body part that comes into your mind that needs a little bit of love. Maybe it's your feet, maybe it's your back, maybe it's your knees. Maybe it's your eyes. Just notice that body part. And if it's easy to do so, just place your hands on that body part. And use your breath to breathe in and breathe out into that part of your body, sending your attention and positive vibes and energy to that body part. Breathing in and out, and just feeling that body part relaxing. And now we're going to visualize that we're outside in nature. So just trust your imagination here and pick somewhere, maybe you know in this world or somewhere in your imagination that's outside in nature. Maybe you're by the beach, in your garden, or in a forest. Just notice where you are. Notice what place has called you today. And slowly walk around and explore, feeling your feet on the earth below you, feeling a light breeze on your face and the sun in the sky. Maybe you can hear birds, maybe you can hear the breeze. Just breathe in the energy of this beautiful place in nature. And know that nature is always there for us. And we're just going to ask our intuition now for one word. And this one word is, what do I need right now? Ask yourself, what do I need right now? And let a word appear in your mind. Go with the first word and trust that this is your intuition speaking to you. And then when you're ready, we're just going to slowly open our eyes and grab our journals, our pens and paper. And we're going to spend a few moments in silence, well, with the gentle music in the background, just asking ourselves some simple questions. So the first question that we're going to journal about is, what 3 things are you grateful for today? What 3 things are you grateful for today? They may be big things or small things. Just notice and capture them. A few more moments on this one. And then we're going to move on to the next point. So the next one we're going to journal about is today I choose to accept. So today I choose to accept. Just write whatever comes into your mind and let your pen flow. So the final question we're going to journal is, what one thing can you do today to give yourself some self-care and love? What one thing can you do today to give yourself some self-care and love? Okay, so I hope you've all had enough time to have a little think and a little write. You can always revisit these, but there's no right nor wrong.